Look at this black figure amphora showing armored warriors Achilles and Ajax playing a board game. Because the artist painted their names right above their heads using text labels, it is tempting to assume this piece directly illustrates Homer's Iliad for ancient readers. But Greek vase painters almost never directly illustrated Homer's epics. These artisans operated as independent craftsmen, adapting and evolving local folklore for the everyday masses, and they had to tell these sprawling stories under severe physical constraints. They were not painting on flat canvases. They were trying to wrap complex narratives around the highly restrictive, curved surfaces of everyday pottery. Without the luxury of written dialogue or cinematic movement, these painters hit a wall. To make their stories readable to a wide audience, they had to invent an entirely new visual language from scratch. Governed by strict, highly engineered storytelling rules, these clay vessels function as the ancient world's first original graphic novel format. The first major problem these artists had to solve was character identification. In early Greek art, distinct portraiture did not exist. Figures were painted generically, featuring identical pointy chins and long noses, making it impossible to tell one hero from another by their face alone. This face shows how they solved the problem, the attribute system. Look at the central figure. You know immediately that this is the goddess Athena because she wears her distinct helmet, round shield, and patterned garment. When the cast grew too large or a scene got too crowded for visual attributes to do all the work, painters deployed a simple fallback. They wrote the names of the gods and heroes directly into the empty, negative space around the figures. By pairing visual attributes with text labels, these artists trained the ancient public to instantly recognize a massive cast of characters entirely by their gear. It established a pop culture branding system identical to how we recognize modern superhero logos today. With the characters identifiable, painters faced their next hurdle, establishing grand settings and geography. They could not afford to waste precious, limited surface area painting detailed backgrounds. They developed a system of visual shorthand. By substituting a single object for an entire environment, they saved space. A single painted column represented a massive temple. 2 dolphins swimming near the bottom of the scene instantly indicated the ocean. Depicting a complex, multi-step sequence of events within a single, unmoving image required an even more sophisticated solution. Their breakthrough was the continuous method. Instead of isolating a single moment, painters arranged multiple, sequential events of a single story side by side in one uninterrupted band of art. Look at the dense, continuous frieze band on this volute crater, a large vessel used for mixing wine and water. Moving horizontally along the painted track, you see the story of the Trojan prince Troilos, the initial setup at the fountain, then the climax of the pursuit, and finally the aftermath of the revenge, all depicted sequentially without any physical breaks. By utilizing visual shorthand for space and the continuous method for time, painters successfully compressed the scope of entire epic poems into a single visual glance. Over time, the medium experienced a major technological shift, moving from the older, silhouette-heavy black figure style to the much more advanced red figure technique. This red figure vase shows exactly what that shift achieved. Instead of flat silhouettes, artists could now paint overlapping bodies, dynamic twisting poses, and detailed interior line work. Because they could now render actual facial expressions, painters began tackling emotionally devastating scenes like the Sack of Troy. The medium evolved from symbolic storytelling into visceral drama. But we have to remember the physical context of these artworks. They were never meant to be preserved under glass. They were functional wine jugs, mixing bowls, and oil flasks, handled actively during dimly lit symposia, traditional Greek drinking parties. Because these objects were handled daily at parties and in homes, the humble vase painters, rather than the poets, became the primary, most accessible distributors of the mythological canon for the average citizen. Our collective visual imagination of Greek mythology was not built by the written words of Homer. The iconic looks of the heroes, of the terrifying monsters, and of the gods were instead engineered by forgotten vase painters through this comic strip universe.